Hello.
Evening. How are you?
Evening.
How do you do?
Good, Baruch Hashem. I'm hoping we're going to finish Pesukei Tzimra today, but that means that we are left with a chapter. Oh, hello, Harry. Oh, you remembered the
Of course I remember.
snaps. Okay, excellent.
I remember the last 2 weeks.
I know. So I'm hoping that we've finished Pesukei Tzimra today, but that leaves us with a chapter at the end, which is Hilchot Arba Minim. I guess the laws of the Arba Minim, the Levan Etrog, and I presume originally when this was made, it was meant to be around Sukkot time. So I suggest that we skip the final chapter, and we could come back to it nearer Sukkot. I think might be the best course of action. Is everyone agreed?
Hi.
That sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. That's good. Happy
Sounds
with
like
that.
a plan. Okay, so I think we'll leave. So hopefully we'll finish then the book today, and we'll skip over Arba Minim and save it for Sukkot. He was out the front being very busy with. Okay. Thank you. Here we go. Michael, you're late. I'll tell you what we missed. We're at the end of we're going to hopefully do the end of Zimra today, and part 10 we're not going to get to today. That's ambitious. Take it home. But part 10 is already in the book. 10 is available to be purchased at the office. So anyone who's around, book 10 is available already in the office to be purchased. Okay. So we are actually, I believe, I'm trying to find the exact page we're up to. We're in Pesukei Tzimra part 1. Hopefully before next week. What I might try and do is I might just take a stack here and people can write names down. Not for now, for next week. For next week we'll need 10. For next week we'll need 10, which is available in the office. Okay, so it is available. 10 is in the office. Okay, it's going to do screen share. So we're in Pesukei Tzimra. Last week we spoke about the various interruptions that one is allowed to make. I'll find the exact page in a moment. The various interruptions one is allowed to make for during Pesukei Tzimra. We spoke about various. Let's find the exact page that we're on. Had it before. Okay, yeah, page 237. I believe we're on. Page 237. Just get it up and I'll share screen. Okay. Okay, here we go. Page 237. Page 237. So we were discussing Hilchot Pesukei Tzimra, and now we're discussing how to properly recite Pesukei Tzimra on page 237. So there's a quote by the Orchot Chaim. The Beit Yosef cites the Orchot Chaim. Talks about the issue that some people have raised here about people who rush into davening. They rush through Pesukei Tzimra in order to have a longer part of other parts of the davening, particularly Shmoneh Esrei. People who rush through, or to finish earlier perhaps. So people who rush through Pesukei Tzimra in order, but spend a long amount of time with Shmoneh Esrei. The Orchot Chaim says that this is comparable to somebody who basically wants to, my own needs are more pressing than giving shevach to the melech, than giving praise to the king. That I'm, willing to just rush through Pesukei Tzimra, which is all about giving shevach to Hashem, in order to get to Shmoneh Esrei, which is about what I need. I'm good with my talisker. Thank you. Okay. So if we look in source 23, the Beit Yosef cites this already inside, page 237. Katuv b'sefer Orchot Chaim. So Orchot Chaim writes, "B'shem Rabbeinu Natan, otam b'nei Adam, those people she'omrim psukim b'mrutza, who say, rushing through the psukim, like mrutza is like a sprint, almost. Ritza is rushing, is running. Lo ye'ut avdin, they're not doing correctly, they're not acting correctly. Shemakatzrin shivcho shel makom, because they are shortening the praise of Hashem, b'shvil she'ilat sokam, in order to ask for their own needs. But you're rushing through, yalla, let's get past the shevach, because I've got so much to ask for in Shmoneh Esrei. Hayesh moshel she'itrat tebakach, is there any ruler who would be satisfied with such a thing? Pleased with such a thing? That's the Orchot Chaim says, being quoted there in the Beit Yosef. That it's illogical that you rush through praise for Hashem in order to ask, is that acceptable in the eyes of any ruler? Certainly not and should not be in the eyes of Hashem acceptable either. We rush through Pesukei de Zimra to get to to have a really nice, good Shemona Esrei. But and there are other analogies also offered. We're going to see in the Mishnah Berurah in source 25. First in source 24, let's see the Shulchan Aruch says, again, you shouldn't say the Zmirot, the praises, namely Pesukei de Zimra, which is Zimra, in a rush, ki im benachat, but rather, slowly, gently, nachas, right, gently. And Mishnah Berurah there says in source 25, b'mutza, in a rush or in haste, shelo yidaleg shum teva, you shouldn't skip words in your rush to get it all out. V'lo yavli em, you shouldn't swallow your words. Ela rather yotzi mipiv ki'ilu moneh ma'ot. You should take each word out, pronounce it as if you're counting points, as if you're counting money. Like, right, you don't want to make a mistake. So you count them, you count them carefully, and also as they're precious to you as well. That's the analogy.
So given that these two authorities, the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah, have been quite categorical in what they say, how does the customer rise?
So, how does the customer rise? Therefore, that people do rush. That's the question. Sorry, I mean, if you turn up late, we'll deal with today. The question of priorities in Pesukei de Zimra. We'll talk about that later. But the point is, typically, the rule. If the rabbi is giving mussar for something, it's usually because people are doing it. Otherwise, there's not what to tell. What's the point mentioning it? And that's really what they're doing here, because they're emphasizing the fact that it's not the correct practice, not the correct practice to rush. And that's what they raise here, just in their analogies. I didn't bring the turntable, you see. I left it next door. It's in there. If someone wants to get it by my makom. Yeah, is that right? It's like on the shelf by my seat. Thank you. By your brother-in-law's seat, sorry. Okay. Politically correct. So, what was the...
course in the giving. He said some people say they feel it so quickly they have to finish them in
got shit to get through. Well, they say that's all right because they will. I'm gonna have to turn the so people can hear from the microphone.
There's a Mishnah that talks about Balei Malacha, for example. They can double. You know what I'm going to say? Balei Malacha, for example, if they're on a ladder, Zman Krishma, they can say Krishma on the ladder because the halacha is sensitive to their role. So similarly, you could say here that somebody has to rush off to work. Balabatim, maybe don't have to go to work. Bemet can say the tefillah, benachat, beruach. But someone who has who has to rush off to work, like many of us today, mice, don't have that. Well, I said many, not all. Smart, but not everybody has that luxury.
It's certainly true that not everyone does have that luxury, but the idea that people, if you want to rush Pesukei de Zimra to get to Shemona Esrei and have a longer Shemona Esrei, that's the question of priorities. That's what I think they're getting at.
It's often the case that people that are rushing to the whole of davening, they're not just rushing from one section to spend more time in another section.
Exactly. So at least if you're going to rush, be rude to God as well as for your own needs as well as to God. That's the point. Don't pretend to be also pious when you get to Shemona Esrei. But hallelujah, I can that's exactly what he's saying. So that's what they're alluding to here. Equally rude, right? At least be consistent in your rushing. That's the point.
Sure, people have to go off to work, so they go to a faster meeting. They know it's going to be a faster meeting. We've got the luxury of more time. They'll go to more relaxed meeting, which takes a longer time, and it's consistent davening as opposed to saying that you go. But based on time, they'll take 50 minutes, 60 minutes as opposed to 23 or 25 minutes.
No, that's true. If you're not in Yeshiva and you're not in Kotel, most people don't have to. That's the point.
Okay, I propose we move on, but I think consistency is the importance that we learn from those sources. So let's move on to the next 238. So another important paragraph is Mizmor LeTodah. It's this parak of Tehillim parak Kuf that we recite as part of Pesukei de Zimra, which represents the Korban Todah, the thanks offering that people would bring to thanks to Hashem in various cases. And the Midrash, in fact, in source 26, talks about the virtues of this Korban, the Korban Todah, the thanksgiving Korban. In source 26, the Midrash says, Rabbi Pinchas, Rabbi Levi, Rabbi Yochanan, B'Shem Rabbi Menachem, the Galia of Galia, Le'at said as follows: Le'atid lavo, in the days to come, in the future, kol korbanot b'teilin, all offerings will be nullified; they will no longer be in existence. The korban hatoda eino batal, whereas the korban toda will not be batal. Kol tefillot b'teilot hoda eina b'teila. All notion of tefillah will be abolished, but the hoda'ah, tefillah of hoda'ah will not be abolished. The idea being that Todah is something which is always relevant, even in a messianic world. That's what they're getting at here, that Todah has significant importance. Even when in theory, other korbanot will be nullified, the korban Todah will go on forever because of its importance of just giving pure thanks to Hashem. In fact, there's an interesting halacha brought in the Rishonim. We look at source 27. The Orchak Chaim also brings regarding that you're really supposed to sing it. I think if you look in the art scroll, it has a note about saying it joyously. So where does that come from? We're going to see inside where that comes from, and that's already here in the Orchak Chaim in source 27. So the Orchak Chaim says quite clearly, but you're supposed to say it. You're supposed to sing. You're supposed to sing Mizmor LaTodah. Look at source 27. Uvimkomot she'omrim Mizmor LaTodah. Katav harav Natan, Rabbeinu Natan writes, "Shemitzvah limshoch oto b'negina u'lenagen." It doesn't mean you're supposed to get out your instruments, but it means you're supposed to say it slowly with negina, with joy, and with song, and you're supposed to sing it. Keda'arin, as we say, kol hashirot atidot libatel chutz b'mizmor LaTodah, right? As we saw in the midrash, that all future songs apart from Mizmor LaTodah are going to be nullified. They're really supposed to almost sing it. Now this sounds a bit far-fetched. We said the idea of saying it joyously, but in fact, the Shulchan Aruch actually seems to rule this way. If we look at it over the page, if we look at the next source, in source 28. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah.
It implies that it wasn't a universal custom.
Correct. In times Rishonim, it says those who say it should say it b'negina, should say it with singing. It implies it wasn't universally accepted, correct? At that point, at least.
The korban todah is what you brought if you were one of those.
Yeah. So the korban todah is what was brought on special occasions. Yes, like a bench and gong type thing. Exactly.
So why do you say it every day? Because you don't bench gomel every day.
Why do we say it every day? Because you're supposed to be thankful to Hashem every day. It's okay to Zimra. That's it. The only times we don't say the korban todah, Mizmor LaTodah, is not all Erev Yom Tov. We don't say Erev. We don't say Erev Yom Kippur, Erev Pesach, and Chol HaMoed Pesach. Why? Because the idea of the korban todah is supposed to be able to be eaten that night. So Erev Yom Kippur, you can't say it because it can't be eaten all that night because it's Yom Kippur. Erev Pesach, you can't say it because it's Chametz. And Chol HaMoed Pesach also you can't have it because it's Chametz. So those are the 3 times we don't say it: Erev Pesach, Chol HaMoed Pesach, and Erev Yom Kippur. And we also, and in addition, we don't have the next say on Shabbos and Yom Tov because we don't bring a korban todah on Shabbos and Yom Tov.
But if you only brought the korban todah on those 4 particular occasions. Didn't bring the korban todah.
You don't bring the korban todah. That's why we don't say Mizmor LaTodah. You can't bring a korban todah Erev.
But in general, you only brought a korban todah. You bring it every day.
No, you only brought it typically on when there was a happy event. It wasn't Chova.
It was like, if you recover from an illness.
Oh, you mean the 4 occasions of Gomel, correct?
Yeah,
that's when we say it. I thought you meant the times we don't say Mizmor LaTodah are the days where they could not bring the korban todah. Because it wasn't Roi Lachila overnight.
The korban todah was brought when you recovered from an illness, or when you crossed the desert, or you went over the sea.
Yes.
Or you got released from prison.
Right. Korban todah was bringing on those special occasions.
And Mizmor
salvation. Right.
Mizmor LaTodah is in place of korban todah.
Okay.
So why do we say it every day?
In case you have in case there's a need for a todah. That's really the reason, I think. And it's part of that what Sukkot Zimra is all about. It's all about giving praise. But we'll see here though that look in source 28. The Shulchan Aruch also says not only supposed to say, it's supposed to sing it. Mizmor LaTodah, source 28. Yesh le'omra b'negina. You're supposed to say it with a song. Shekol hashirot atidot libatel chutz Mizmor LaTodah, because all future songs are going to be abolished apart from Mizmor LaTodah. You're supposed to sing it. Good luck, whoever's davening tomorrow trying to sing Mizmor LaTodah from the Amud, because that doesn't seem to be the widespread practice. Although some people do push. Look here, he quotes the Halicha Shlomo, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, who also says, well, really, you're supposed to do it. And this Halicha Shlomo is like his Talmidim writing basically about Shlomo Zalman Auerbach's practices. So it says here in source 29, Gam He'ir Tamid. Shlomo Zalman also used, a comment. Why aren't they keeping the Shulchan Aruch? What we just saw. Lomar, to say Mizmor LaTodah b'negina, you're supposed to say it as a song. Befrat b'kilot hachasidim, and this is great, especially in the the Hasidic communities. Shiragilin lezame b'shat tefillah. In general, they anyway sing parts of davening, Klugon such as Kel Adon, Chadon, and the like. Lama ein mezamrin mizmar Torah. Why aren't you singing mizmar Torah? It's in the Shulchan Aruch. So Shlomo Zalman was like, no, we're supposed to sing. Why don't we do it? But sorry, we don't have his tune. No, the Orchos Chaim, I'm not sure if we have his tune, but he does say here that the Piskei Teshuvah says the minhag is that you're supposed to recite it joyously, and that's what's meant by bin nagina. Doesn't mean literally as a tune, but you're supposed to recite with the simcha, with joy.
The korban Torah, that consisted of an animal korban.
Yeah.
It was an animal.
No, it's both. It had both. The point is that since it contained chametz, and it was had to be eaten at night, right?
And 40 matzot, I think.
It's right. But the point is that because of the chametz bit in it, it would not be ra'oi, it would not be fitting to eat at night, and therefore Erev Pesach is not offered. Similarly, it's not offered Erev Yom Kippur because it wouldn't be fitting to eat at night because you can't eat on Yom Kippur. Okay. Okay, I see a question. We are okay. We are on page. We're now moving on to page 240. 240 in book 9. Okay, we're not going to finish this tonight, are we? No, all good. Yeah, quick, very quick one.
Why do we say it's standing?
Why do we say it's standing? Part of the simcha. Part of the simcha. Okay, so women and Pesukei Zimra. So are women obligated to recite Pesukei Zimra on page 240 here in book 9? Are women chayav in Pesukei Zimra? So it would seem that if it's prepared as an introduction for tefillah, if women are obligated in tefillah, and that's a separate topic as to how many tefillah women are obligated in, and I think in a future book, which I don't think has yet been written, we'll discuss, unless it's in 10. We nonetheless, the question is, well, are women obligated in this part of davening? Well, if Pesukei Zimra is designed as an introduction for tefillah, then if they're obligated in tefillah, then they should be obligated in Pesukei Zimra as well. And that's the position of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, which is cited by the Mishnah Berurah in source 30, page 240. Upsukei Zimra, regarding Pesukei Zimra, ayin le'el b'simon bet b'chidushay Rabbi Akiva Eiger. The muchach sham, it's proven midvar from his word, the ha'ikar, that the main purpose was nitkanu b'shvil ha'tefillah. They were, the Pesukei Zimra, these psukim of praise were enacted because of the tefillah. Imken, if that's the case, memela chayvot. And it must be that they are obligated. If they're obligated in tefillah, then they should be obligated in reciting Pesukei Zimra as well. But some people disagree and say that no, women were only obligated in the original, in the actual key parts of tefillah, but not meaning Shema. Well, Shema is already machlokes, but Amida, but not necessarily in the Pesukei Zimra. If we look in source 31, the Aruch HaShulchan held that way. In source 31, the Aruch HaShulchan writes, "Ubarach she'amar v'yishtabach." Women are not obligated to recite Baruch She'amar Yishtabach v'yocholot lomar, but they are able, obviously, to recite it if they wish. V'lama lo yechlu lezamer Hashem? Why not? Why shouldn't they be able to give praise to Hashem? Kamo she'asta Miriam, just like Miriam did. V'chol neshei Yisrael, also all the women of Israel, b'kriyat Yamsuf, at the splitting of the sea. So he says, although strictly speaking, they might not be obligated in it, nonetheless, of course, they can and perhaps should recite Pesukei Zimra as well. But what's the issue that we've raised multiple times in different forums here? Is that this assumes that you can recite a bracha that you're exempt from. Because if I recite Baruch She'amar, I'm not obligated in it. Now that's fine for an Ashkenazi, because Ashkenazim, we paskin like Rabbeinu Tam, that we recite brachas of things we're exempt from. But Sfaradim typically don't do that. Sfaradim don't recite a bracha on something that's a minhag or something which they're opting to do. They're not obligated to. And the question is then, can Sephardi women, according to this opinion, say Pesukei Zimra with Shem Hashem or not? Because Sephardi women, or Sephardim in general, typically don't recite a bracha that they're not obligated in. So it's actually an important question. Are women obligated in Pesukei Zimra? Because if you're a Sephardi woman and we paskin like that you're not obligated, that means you're not really supposed to maybe recite Baruch She'amar Yishtabach, at least with the word, with Shem Malchut, with Baruch Atah Hashem. It's, so Mr. Berurah for sure obligated. I think it's because very important. Muhammad doesn't talk about it.
Oh, he doesn't.
No.
The Mishnah Berurah, like I said, the argument between the Mishnah Berurah and Aruch HaShulchan is clearly like it's the typical argument between the two of them, because like the Mishnah Berurah is talking theoretically, and the Aruch HaShulchan is saying, do women say
Were you at Suda Shlishi? I didn't mention this as one of my examples when I was giving my piece on Mishnah Berurah versus Aruch HaShulchan. But yeah, this would be an example. Practically, it could be women were not reciting it. Aruch HaShulchan picks up on that.
Was not a killer of.
Are you taking words out of my my Suda
You
Shlishi?
didn't say that. You didn't say he wasn't a killer of.
I said I didn't say I was Rosh Hashiva versus Rav Kehila.
Yeah.
That's clearly the difference. I'm not.
Yeah.
Oh. So we look at source stated the Isha Yisrael already recites Chayavot Lomar Psukei de Zimra or Baruch She'amar Lifneihem Ve'yishtabach Achreihem. Women are obligated. So practically there are modern day poskim who say this. Isha Yisrael is modern day for in Israel. And but Rav Ovadia actually says, surprise, surprise, Rav Yaakov, his son Rav Yosef writes in the Yaakov Yosef that women should not recite Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. Because if they're exempt from it, and you're a Sephardi person cannot recite bracha they're exempt from. Only Ashkenazim do that. So should not recite Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. Sephardi women should not recite Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. Because if they're exempt, then they don't recite bracha they're exempt from. But not all Sephardim agree. Many Sephardim, they say the Orlet Zion, right? Many Sephardim say women should recite Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach, right? Right. So Rav Ovadia was a big pusher for this example. Yes.
Does that mean that if a woman enjoys, if you like, a particular exemption from the mitzvah, she can't opt in?
No, not the mitzvah. Chas v'shalom. We're talking here about a special halacha in brachot, special law in brachot. According to Rav Ovadia Yosef, correct, but not according to many other Sephardi poskim. It's a special halacha in Hilchot Brachot. She can opt in to sit in the sukkah. She can opt in to shake lulav. She can opt in to hear shofar. But she cannot make the bracha over it because, in the same way that a Sephardi man also cannot make a bracha according to Sephardim over Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, because Hallel on Rosh Chodesh is largely a minhag. So don't make the bracha lekroy to Hallel. Now the Gra it's not out. You shouldn't make it because Hallel on Rosh Chodesh is really a minhag. It's not basic halacha, and therefore it's a strong minhag, which is accepted, but it's minhag, and therefore they don't recite a bracha.
But their bracha is also different.
Their bracha is like Gemara to Hallel, but that just
and because you're not finishing it.
So okay, but the same rules apply. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Sorry to go over probably something we discussed before here, this business. But to me, the Siddur is a compilation of tefillot and psalms and so forth. And the Rambam says quite categorically, some people have fluency with words and some people don't. And I must say I'm surprised at how prescriptive, this text seems to be, in that you must say this, you must say that, because the Rambam clearly says, some people will say little and some people will say a lot.
So you're referring to the Rambam at the beginning of Hilchot Tefillah, where he brings this whole historical exhibition there. Hilchot Tefillah, Perek Aleph. Once upon a time, people were fluent, and then people would formulate their own tefillot. But then you're missing the next bit, which is then he said, then times changed, and we all went into Galut, and then Hebrew was no longer the mother tongue, and therefore Chazal had to step in, and that's exactly, and then everything has changed since then. Well, Rambam says midoraita. Biblically, you can formulate your own tefillah as long as it has very specific components. But midrabanan, Chazal said that's not good enough on rabbinic level. You have to have a set tefillah in order to ensure you fulfill. Right.
3 different ways that we say
Birkat Torah.
To me, it was giving you 3 options rather than, and I mean, I read it.
But the Gemara, and what did the Gemara there say? We do all of them. They're all beautiful.
Yeah, I know we do all of them. But I'm just saying that you basically got 3 ways of
expressing.
Like we say, we're creative.
It's an interesting one, but the point is that the concept of ish yashar beinav, each person does what's correct in their eyes, did not take, unfortunately, and that's why. Okay, so I think we'll skip over machshava. You'll forgive me. You're welcome to read it in your own time. We'll skip over to part 2. So we're just over the next section. Yeah, well, you can read it in your own time then, Peter. Is that all right? It's okay to Zimra part 2. Okay, so we're on page 253. Okay, it takes us to page 253. Sorry, there's quite a bit of skipping, but page 253. So I want to discuss more of the halachot with you and see how far we get with this today. And we might hopefully be starting book 10 next week. Okay. So obviously we said that the central piece of Psukei Zimra, when we discussed last week, is Ashrei, right? You have Baruch Shama, you have Yishtabach, neither of which are actually mentioned in the Gemara, right? Only in the Geonim, and consequently, and then you have Ashrei, which is alluded to in the Gemara. The Shevach, the praise about reciting Ashrei, is mentioned in the Gemara, unlike the rest of Psukei Zimra. If we look in source 1 there on page 253, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Vina, Kol ha'omer Tehillah David Chol Yom, whoever recites Tehillah David, which is what we call Ashrei, every day, Shalosh Pa'amim, 3 times, Muftach lo shu ben olam haba, is guaranteed the portion in the world to come. My time, and what's the reason? Why is Ashrei so amazing? What we call Ashrei. Again, Ashrei doesn't really start with Ashrei. Ashrei is ready for somewhere else. It starts Tehillah David. That's where it starts. So why is it that it's Tehillim Kuf Mem Hey? Why is Tehillim Kuf Mem Hey such a beautiful psalm that it merits the special status? So the Gemara there discusses it. Ilema, if we say in the second paragraph of source 1, Ilema, if we're going to say Mishum Da'achi Ba'alef Bet, because it follows the Aleph Bet, right? Every single letter we're praising Hashem. Aromem Melech, B'chol Yom. So maybe it's not as a question in the Gemara there about Rez Nun, but Neima, but a better question the Gemara says, let's just say, so why don't we say Tehillim Kuf Yotet, Ashrei Tmimei Darech, right? Da'achia B'tamanya, because each pasuk there is repeated 8 times. Each letter of the Aleph Bet. There's 8 Alephs, 8 bets, right? That's why we take usually when we're reciting Tehillim for a name, for a levaya or consecration, that's what we use. Because for the letters of the name, because it's got 8 psukim for each letter of the Aleph Bet. So if that's the reason, that surely Kuf Yotet's a better choice. I think we might be a little bit thankful that Kuf Yotet we don't recite every day. It's quite long. Ella rather, what's the reason? Another reason. Mishum da'it bei potech et yedech. No, the reason that we like Ashrei is because it has the beautiful pasuk on it of potech et yedech maspil chochai ratzon. So you open your hand and you satisfy maspil chochai ratzon. You satisfy all living things according to you. So if that's why it's special, because of that recognition that God is the one who gives goodness to everything, Neima, let's instead recite Hallel Hagadol. That's what Chazal called Tehillim Kuf Lamed Vav, the Hodu, right? Hodu, the very long Hodu. Dichtiv Be, because it says in it, Notem Lechem L'chol Basar Ki L'olam Chasdo. In that also we recognize Notem Lechem L'chol Basar. God gives food to every all flesh, to every living thing. So what's the reason? Ella rather concludes the Gemara, Mishum De'it Be Tarte. It has 2 things. It has both of these. It both enumerates praise to Hashem using the Aleph Bet, and simultaneously it has that recognition of Poteach et Yedecha that Hashem provides to everything and everyone. And that's what Ashrei is so special, because it's praising Hashem with the Aleph base, whilst also recognizing Poteach et Yedecha Maspir L'chol Ratzon.
This is a deviation, an alternate translation of the word maspia. It's an alternate grammar, and I can't remember who I heard it from. So I'm sorry, I apologize to whoever I heard it from. But maspia is not who satisfies, but causes every living thing to have an appetite. So it's more. Yeah, so
but it's maspia. Gorem svia causes satisfaction.
But who gives every living thing an appetite? Therefore, every living thing will want to eat in order, and then because if you didn't have an appetite, you wouldn't eat.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. Let's. Okay. We typically have the minhag to add psukim to the beginning, right? We add Ashrei Yoshlei Beitecha Ojai Luchasela and Ashrei Shkachal Ashrei Hashem Elokav, and these psukim don't come from there. They come from Tehillim Pei Dalet. So the question is, why are these psukim recited? These psukim, which we put at the beginning of Ashrei, and that's why it's called Ashrei, we use based on another Gemara, which actually alludes to these psukim in talking about how a person doubles. That's over the page of source 2. Brachot Lamabet Amabet, source 2 there on page 254. Tanya Nami Hachal, we've also learned in a writer, Hamit Palel Sarich Sheyisheh Sha'achat Kodem Tfilato. The Gemara says that a person who's davening is supposed to wait an hour, whether it's literally an hour or not, it's about for discussion, supposed to wait a certain amount of time before his davening, and an hour after his davening. In other words, you're not supposed to rush into shul and out of shul. You're supposed to process that you're going to do something holy and you're leaving something holy. How do we know that you're supposed to stop before tefillah? Shenemar, as it says, Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha. It quotes the Al Pasuk. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Ojeh Lo Chasela. Right, blessed, fortunate are those who dwell, or happy are those who dwell in your house. They will praise you, and that's why we put that at the beginning of Tehillah David, what we call Ashrei, which is the central focus of Sukkot Zimra, which is all about Ojeh Halalu Chasela. That we will praise you. They will praise you. That's why that pasuk belongs at the start of Ashrei, and that's what Tosfot brings as the source for why we do this. In source 3, Tosfot say, Lufikach, therefore, the black in source 3, Tiknu le'omar zeh pasuk. This is why Chazal instituted to recite this pasuk, Kodem Tehillah David, before Tehillah David, La'afuke minhanu da'amrei Ashrei harbe. This excludes those who recite many verses beginning with Ashrei. Specifically, this is the verse that you're supposed to recite. But we don't only add to the beginning of Ashrei, these psukim, we also add a verse to the end of Ashrei as well. People might not know this, but it's not actually from Tehillim Kuf Mem Hey. It's also from elsewhere. Sorry? Doesn't say Tehillim, right? So it's from elsewhere. And the Torah brings this minhag. So we know that we cite extra at the beginning of Tehillah David. We also add one at the end of Ashrei. Source 4, the Torah explains this. But now Hagulo Mar Kodem Lechem, and they had the minhag custom to recite before Ashrei Yoshvei Mishum, because as we said before, we learned from that pasuk, Shetzarich Adam leishev sha achat kodem sheitpalel. Person's supposed to sit for an hour before davening. V'acharav, and afterwards, now after Ashrei, now Hagulo they have the minhag to add the pasuk as we do. V'anachnu nevarech ka. What's the reason? For Katav Rav Amram. And Rav Amram says, so he doesn't say why. He says that's just part of the minhag. And Rav Amram also says, L'shal shulei halaluka batar halaluka. Then he's supposed to go into a chain, right, a string of halaluka after Ashrei. The chulhu parshiot, all of the parshias, and kol shemata halal halaluka until the end of Tehillim. That's what we do. We recite all the halalukas after, and we saw that discussion that Rashi understood you only recite 2, whereas the Rambam and the Rif said you recite all 5 halalukas. And that we'll see in a moment as the ramifications for that. But so the Torah brings this other minhag regarding that. But there are also minhagim also in terms of the pasuk of Patech et Yedecha, because the Gemara had said that there are 2 things which are special about Ashrei. One is the fact that it goes through the alphabet and praise Hashem with every letter of the alphabet. But also that pasuk, that recognition of Patech et Yedecha, that God opens His hand and gives satisfaction or appetite to keep Peter happy, appetite to all living things. But what's supposed to actually have special kavanah for that pasuk. And if we look in source 5, Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah brings this there. He says, seeing that's the primary part of the tefillah of that perek, that's why you're supposed to have an extra kavanah. And that's why there's all various, especially Hasidic minhagim around, doing various actions and things, and also, kissing the tefillin as well, because supposed to have special concentration on during that pasuk. So let's look in source 5 at the words of Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah. For kivan she'ikar amirato, since the primary reason we recite it, umipnei zeh pasuk, is because of this pasuk, to show Hashem's strength, that God provides sustenance for everything, from the horns of the big re'im animal all the way through to the little the eggs of lice. That God basically, big and small, is the one who sustains everything. Therefore, Omrim HaGaonim, the Gaonim state, should tzarich lechaven ba'amirat. You're supposed to have extra kavana to the meaning of that pasuk in Ashrei. You have to have kavana for that pasuk. But it goes further. The imlo kiven, if a person didn't have kavana intention for that pasuk, tzarich lachzar le'omro pa'am acher, you have to go and repeat it. You have to go back. When you're in, it seems, says the Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah, she'afal pi shelo kiven b'kulo, even if you didn't have kavana in the entire Ashrei, kivan shekiven b'pasuk shel Patech et Yedecha, if you have kavanah in that pasuk Patech et Yedecha, sagilei b'hachi, that's enough. Kivan she'ikar ha'amira hi ba'avur zeh pasuk, because the main reason for reciting the whole psalm is because of that pasuk Patech et Yedecha. But he actually said you're supposed to go back if you don't have kavanah. And surprisingly enough, the Shulchan Aruch actually rules this way. If we look at source 6, the Shulchan Aruch and Aruch Chaim says, Sarich lechaven b'pasuk Patech et Yedecha, you have to have kavanah, intention when you recite the pasuk Patech et Yedecha. Ve'im lo kiven, if a person did not have kavanah, sarich lachzar, you have to go back, or le'omro pa'am acheret, and recite the pasuk again. Now the question is, how far back? What do I have to do? Do I have to just recite just that pasuk again that I can carry on, or do I have to recite Patech all the way through to the end of Ashrei? So the Achronim discuss exactly what the Mishnah Berurah meant and what the Shulchan Aruch meant when it said Lachzor la'omro. You have to go back and say. Do you have to go back and repeat the whole end of Ashrei or just that pasuk and then you continue? So source 7, the Mishnah Berurah says that you're supposed to actually recite all the way from Patach to the end of Ashrei. Again, not just that pasuk. We look at source 7. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Ayin b'chai Adam shehevi b'shem alavush shetzarich lomar me pasuk Patach ad sof hamizmar kaseder." You have to say from the pasuk Patach all the way to the end of that piece of Tehillim in order. V'im lo nizkar ad shekvar ama mizmarim acherim. What if you only realize you didn't have kavanah after you've already recited a few halalukas? Ve'elo shehut lachzon. You don't have any time to go back. B'kol makom, nonetheless, yomar achar tefillah me pasuk Patach ad sof hamizmar. So after davening, say again from Patach et Yadecha until the end of Ashrei. In other words, it's the unit from Patach to the end of Ashrei that the Mishnah Berurah says is important to repeat. But not everyone agrees. The Yalkut Yosef here in source 8 says that no, it's enough just to repeat that pasuk. Yes, Michael.
Could you incorporate that repetition in the second Ashrei?
Excellent question. Can you? What about the fact you can recite Ashrei again? So Rav Yitzchak Yosef is going to talk about that here. We'll look at source 8. So he says the Yalkut Yosef that it's enough just to repeat the pasuk itself. You don't have to go from Patach all the way to the end. Just say that pasuk Patach et Yadecha must be able to fire at some again. And he says in source 8, Sarich lechaven al parnasa b'pasuk Patach et Yadecha. It's about special kavana, the livelihood in this pasuk. That God is the one who provides, sustains everything, who provides sustenance to everything. Or misha lo kiven b'pasuk zeh, a person who did not have intention in this pasuk, lehavin mashmut pasuk kipshuto, just simply to understand the plain meaning of the pasuk. Sarich lachzor la'omra. You have to repeat it. What if you're already a few verses later when you realize you didn't have kavanah? If you remembered before you started the next halalukah, just say that one pasuk again, and continue. And he continues that over the page, page 256 over the page. And if you'd already started the following psalm, the halalukas, and then you realize, wait, I didn't have kavanah, what are you supposed to do? Yomar ha-pasuk b'kavanah bein mizmar la-mizmar. You should say it then and there, that pasuk, between the halalukas. Why there? Why not after davening? Because the whole point of Pesukei Zimra, the main part of it is Ashrei. That's the bit that Gemara actually mentions. And the main part of Ashrei is Patach et Yadecha. And therefore, you really want to make sure you get that in between Baruch Shammah and Yishtabach. What if you forgot? You didn't do so, and you realized after davening, wow, I didn't have kavanah. Have kavanah in the pasuk of Patach in the next Ashrei, as Michael said. So have special kavanah in Patach et Yadecha in the second Ashrei, namely the one that you say before Valitzia, or in the Ashrei before Mincha. Luckily, that's exactly why Chazal said Lomar Gimel Pa'amim. You're supposed to recite 3 times a day, Mizmar Zeh b'chol yom. You're supposed to recite Ashrei 3 times a day, Kedei, so that she'im yishkach, if a person forgets, and didn't have kavanah the first Ashrei, you can make up for it the second and third time. So there's Yalkut Yosef is fascinating. He says, don't worry. That's why Chazal said say it 3 times. So make sure that if you missed it, you have another chance to make up for it. So according to this, you don't have to repeat it specially. Although the Mishnah, correct, that's what Rav Yitzchak Yosef seems to say here. Although the Mishnah Berurah did not seem to apply that way. Mishnah Berurah said you should say it again at the end of davening. He didn't say wait for mincha. We'll just finish with the last few words. Shekala omro b'chavana, because what's the idea? Anyone who recites this pasuk with concentration, muftach lo is guaranteed shu ben olam haba, has a place in the world to come, and that's why we're particular about this. Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm listening to Rabbi Beryl Wine's history tapes years ago. He talked about Monica Lewinsky when the whole incident happened. The father said, how could this happen to me? I say Ashrei 3 times a day. So that was that's my...
It's just a deep philosophical question. Muftach lo shu ben olam haba. The idea that person guaranteed it, it's not... It's a deep question. It's not. I don't. I'll say I'm being recorded, so I have to be careful what I say. But I think that these lines need to be taken not as. I think there's, especially amongst young people today. I count myself as one of them. They're a young person, that is, not one of these people. That there's a tendency to what we call scholar shopping, or quick fixes. If I just do this, I just do that, and then I'm safe.
good,
I'm good, right? I'm covered, right? I'm insured, right? So I think it's important to understand, when Chazal is saying here, what does it mean that you're muftach, guaranteed a place in the world to come? If God forbid be a terrible person, it's okay. Clearly, the high idea is someone who says Ashrei 3 times a day, and is having kavanah in their davening 3 times a day to say Ashrei. That means in turn they're going to be a good person. They're going to be, take particular care in their day, be a person who's Yirei Shemayim, Shomer Torah Mitzvot. It's not. I don't see this as a warm hopes. I don't see it as a quick fix. And I think to see it as a quick fix, I think is a misread of the muftach.
I was going to ask you that.
Right. And I'll go so far to say, so I'll go so far as to say that if you think you are, then you're not really on Robo Chavana. You're not really saying it with Chavana.
Other places, and I was going to ask you, is this a bit of a poetic license that we're seeing here, or is there a source?
The Gemara in the beginning of Brachot discusses.
It's nice to come back to say that it didn't work.
Maybe no one's ever gone.
Is it possible?
Do you know what I mean? Though you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So we said that various minhagim regarding various customs regarding people do different things. So the Piskei Tshuva here cites some of them in source 9. The Ikar HaKavana, the primary Kavana, says the Piskei Tshuva, Sheyavin Perush Hamilot, you understand the meaning of the words, Shekadosh Baruch Hu Mashkiach Al Briyotav Mofarnesan. God watches over his creations and sustains them. That's the idea. With a Sfarim Katvu, in various Sfarim it's written, Al Inyan, that there's this idea, contains staka b'shan amira pasuk. To give staka when you recite this pasuk, and one we might be more familiar with, l'mashmesh tefillin, and also to minhag to touch the tefillin. Right? It's the idea of furthering yirat shamayim, remembering what your concentration. Those who look heavenward while they recite this pasuk. And similarly, there are those yesh nohagin lifros kapayim, and there are those who literally stretch out their hands. La'asot b'zepal dimyoni, like as if they're doing like an imaginary act, as if they're receiving like kabbalah mazal hashefa milamala. They're almost like receiving makabel.
That's a very Sephardi.
Right, it's very Sephardi thing. You're right. Well, you don't see people in Mizrahi doing this.
I must say, not recently.
No, it's more like you have to be careful because when you're doing the kissing of this, it looks like you're doing a different religious act. So you have to be very careful when you're doing yeah.
They do it,
but
they do it nicely.
But it's the idea of in this pasuk having extra. It's having extra kavana in this pasuk. That's what's happening. Okay. So we're gonna see how we're doing for time in terms of I know we're good. Okay, we've got a little bit more. Okay, tell that to the people on Zoom then. Okay, all right. Okay, so which parts are we supposed to stand for in Psukei Zimra? So look, the Ramah jumps straight into it. Source 10 on page 257. The Ramah says, "Now the nahagu la'amod, the minhag is to stand. When you recite Baruch She'amar by Yivarech David v'yishtabach." So there's 3 things: the beginning bracha, the end bracha, and Vayivarech David. He admits, he does admit Mismar Masada. You're right. He does. Those are the minhagim. But Sfardim has typically, or many Arizal-based Sfardim or Arizal-based Ashkenazim often sit down. Parts they only stand up for part of Vayivarech David. We're looking in source 11. Here? Piskei Tshuva recites it. Recounts this minhag based on the Arizal. In source 11, Va'al pi kabbalat ha'arizal, according to the tradition of the Arizal, ein la'amod Vayivarech David. You shouldn't stand in Vayivarech David. Ela ad atahu Hashem Elokim. You're only supposed to stand at the beginning of Vayivarech David, but not the whole way through. V'gamba yishtabach, and also in yishtabach, ein la'amod ela la'shat. Only the shliach tzibur, the chazan, is supposed to stand. So because he has to have the kaddish as close to the end of yishtabach as possible without sitting in his seat and going to stand up, especially in like Sephardi shuls where often there's not necessarily somebody at the front for Psukei Zimra, they're in the seat and then they go forward. No, they're supposed to be standing already. According to the Arizal, the rest of the community is supposed to be sitting for Yishtabach. That's what many Sfardim do. But with Ashkenazim, the customs already become prevalent. That you stand from Vayivarech David all the way through. Shirat Hayam for Az Yashir, Yishtabach, the Kaddish and Kaddish ad Afrei Baruch until after Baruch. Ve'ein l'shanot zulat la'adam chalash. And people should not change the Ashkenazic minhag unless somebody is particularly weak and can't stand for so long. For Kalamin Hamadakim Omdim, and there are those who are extra particular who stand B'chol Psukei de Zimra throughout the entire Psukei de Zimra. What's that raya ledava? What's the proof that this minhag people want to stand the whole of Psukei de Zimra? Ledava, what's the raya for this? Because it says Halalu Avdei Hashem she'omdim b'veit Hashem b'chatzrot beit Elokeinu, that they stand in the house of God. But strictly speaking, Ashkenazim Paskin like the Ramah, as we saw, and they typically stand only for only for the first part. But Mizmor L'Tolda is not mentioned by the Ramah.
There's a comment actually that.
Oh, excellent! I missed that. Excellent.
Number 3.
Right. Okay. Although the Ramah does not mention reciting Mizmor L'Tolda while standing, why is the present on Ashkenazim is to stand for it too? Shulchan Aruch, Shulchan Aruch, Shuvot. Excellent. Sfaradim do sit there. Yeah, correct. Excellent.
Can I just ask you just
Yes.
about the point where we talked about Ashkenazim rules do stand for these tefillot? I'm just wondering. They mentioned Sfaradim, Hasidim, who take many of their minhagim from their result. Do you know if they stand? Or?
Mr. Kingsley.
Sit.
They sit many, do they?
Sit.
Which is logical because they take a lot of their customs.
So
from
there you
their
go. I rely on Reb Mani as my. Chassid.
The other thing I was about to ask is in Sefer Hasidim, the Chassidei Ashkenaz used to spend an hour on Ashrei. Now it seems to me that if you said
based on what we saw in the, that's based on what we saw in the Gemara and Brachot, this idea that the Hasidim would spend an hour before Tefillah. That's where it's based on the minhag.
So I'm just thinking if it's this Avodah Shebalev Zu Tefillah, like the Rambam, you can't just say it because it's not an Avodah Shebalev. If you just it's just a words tumbling out of your mouth. So the question is our tefillah today al pi Shulchan Aruch? Because we're not actually saying it. My grandson was in the Adas school till he went to yeshiva, and I sat down with them for many occasions, and I heard, and they had to say each word out aloud.
So we did this. We did this at the very beginning of. We spoke about this at the very beginning here.
Mila. Every word had to be said, and they would stop. And one of the Magidei Shir in the primary school would say a Dvar Torah or an explanation, Hasbara, on what that tefillah meant and the Kavana Alpi, whatever they were using, had to be. So by the time they finished year 7, year 8, that all had been saying from grade 4, every chakras and every mincha, word for word, slowly out aloud, which I haven't seen in Lubavitch where my kids went to. And I don't know what the situation is. They may do that in Yavne, but I don't know. But I'm just saying this is a lot better than they are them today in the modern Orthodox world. Say every word out aloud.
Okay, I think we should. I hear what you're saying. We spoke about at the beginning about the importance of, especially with Ashrei, and I want to quickly go through what happens if we're late for shul in terms of order of priorities. So we already saw that there's Ashrei as the central tefillah, and then you have Baruch She'amar Nishtabacha on either side. But what about everything else? So let's have a look at already in the Gaonim, in the Siddur of Ramnon Gaon in source 12. He already quotes various minhagim. Did I skip without telling you? Did I skip something? No, I did 207. Okay, we're on to 5.8. Good. Okay. So what happens if a person's late? So I'm skipping the second paragraph there in source 12. They asked a question to Rav Notrai Gaon, one of the Gaonim, and the response was as follows. In the second paragraph there in source 12, page 258. V'heshiv kach. So he responded as follows. K'shetiknu chachamim kach. When Chazal established Psukei de Zimra, tiknu lama Psukei de Zimra v'achar kach leitpalel. Supposed to first be Psukei de Zimra and then tefillah. To Darash Rabbi Simlai, because as Rabbi Simlai said, La'olam yastir adam shivcho shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'achar kach yitpalel. We saw that previously, the Gemara. First, you should put in place in order the praise of Hashem, and only afterwards daven to Him. Vim ra'at tzibur mitpalalim. And if you see they're davening, ve'ein ma'akvim, and they're not dawdling, they're reasonably fast, so you're not going to be able to catch up to them. Kach shemanu b'ma Rabbi Moshe Gon, they heard from Rabbi Moshe Gon, sheshama Rabboteinu heard from our rabbis. Shemavarech melech molam b'tishbachot, and then meaning what we call perhaps baruch she'amar v'omer, and then you say parsha rishona, that's what we call ashrei. Umadaleg, and then you skip v'omer and you say hallelu kel b'kodsho, the final of parak of Tehillim, the kol anshmas halal kol haluka v'chotem, and then you finish off. Umaheru mitpalelim etzibur, and then you daven. So you basically you say Baruch She'amar Ashrei, one of the Halalukas, and then Yishtabach.
Do you light up either your
So here it doesn't say when to do it. Well, he's saying in order to catch up. He doesn't say you should. He doesn't say you don't have to repeat it later. But he said you're supposed to do Baruch She'amar Ashrei, one of the final Halaluka, Yishtabach, in order to make sure that you get up to davening with a minyan for Amida. The Rosh said slightly differently there in his version of events in source 13, and he doesn't mention the extra Halaluka. He just says Baruch She'amar Ashrei and Yishtabach. Look at source 13. Katav Rav Amram Zal said She'im nichnas adam ve'kneset, if he came in late, v'ro'eh she'in, and he sees Shim Yomar, if he's going to recite Kol Elu HaPsukim, the entire Psukim is Imra, Shelo Yuchal Lahashlim Hitpalel Tfilato Em Tzibur, he's not going to be able to actually daven his tefillah with the Tzibur. She'omar, what should he do? He should say Baruch She'amar Mizmar Shel Tehillah David, what we call Ashrei. Then we're in Perek Kama, as we say, and then he goes to the end. And it's only as a result of that they said to the end of Hilkach. Therefore, Tov Hu She'Yedaleg, it's important to skip. It's good to skip. Kedei She'Yikra Kriyat Shema V'Yitpalel Im HaTzibur. It's bad to be late, but if you're late, it's better to skip. Say Baruch She'amar Ashrei Yishtabach, and then you can say Kriyat Shema and Tefillah with the tzibur. So you actually go to the mitzvah of tefillah with tzibur, because you've got to start your Amidah at the same time as everyone else.
Why is it crucial to say Kriyat Shema with the tzibur?
I don't think it's crucial to say Kriyat Shema with the tzibur. I think it's crucial to say, you have to say Kriyat Shema before. You can't skip Kriyat Shema and brachos, and therefore you have to say it. You can't skip Kriyat Shema and the brachos. So you don't have a choice. So he says that. But he goes further though. He says, what if you're really late, and there's no way you're going to get to the Amidah when they do? So he basically seems to say that you should forego the entire Pesukei Dezimra. We look in source 14 there. V'katzav sham b'shem Harizal, and the name of Ri. She'amar b'shem Rabbazal, and the name of his rabbis in source 14. She'im nichnas b'sha'a, he came in at the time Sheshatz matchil yotzer. He's already started yotzer. We call yotzer after Baruch, the first bracha of Kriyat Shema. The ein lo shahot, he doesn't have enough time. Lomar to say afilu mizmar tila leDavid, even to say Ashrei. Tofu, it's better she Kriyat Shema v'Yirkotecha. You should just start after Baruch. We also over Choshech, we palel imad tzibur and daven with them. But achar kach, and afterwards, Yikra Pesukei Dezimra. You should recite Pesukei Dezimra im habrachot. After davening, recite it in a brachot shel fanev shel achareha. In other words, according to the Rosh, you're supposed to afterwards catch up. And unlike the halacha l'maaseh, just in case we don't get to it, the Rosh says you're supposed to say Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach even if you're catching up afterwards. We don't pass in that way. But the Rosh here says you're supposed to repeat. So if you didn't, you have to skip all of Pesukei Dezimra. You start with brachos of Kriyat Shema, and so that you get, if you're really late, so you get out to Amidah with everyone else, and then catch up Pesukei Dezimra afterwards. Now the Rosh here adds you're supposed to say not just the Pesukim, but also Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach you're supposed to recite, even though you're saying it all at the end. We don't pass in that way. So again, the Rosh says if you're really late and you don't even have time to say Baruch She'amar Ashrei Yishtabach, start with Yotzer, right after Baruch. You start after Baruch, so that you get to Amidah with everyone else. And then after davening, recite all of Pesukei Dezimra, including Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach. Now we don't pass in that way.
Say all.
Right.
It's obviously going to include Baruch She'amar and Yishtabach.
No, because they're brachos, and it's not just catching up nice to Tehillim. You're actually saying a tefillah which belongs before davening, and that's why we don't pass in that. See, so it's not clear that. So, I mean, the Rosh says that's the binah. We look in source 15 though. The Shulchan Aruch there says, "Im ba'al beit knesset, you come to shul But Matzat Sibur, and you find the community Besof Sukkot Zimra, at the end of Sukkot Zimra, Omer, you should say, Baruch She'amar Ad Mulab Tishbachot, what we call Baruch She'amar, B'achar Kach, and afterwards Tehillah David Ashrei Ad Me'atav Ad Olam Haluka. Okay, now what if you have time? So then you should say B'achar Kach, afterwards Halalu Et Hashem in Hashemayim, what we call the third Haluka, Ad Ivnei Yisrael Amkor B'Haluka. B'achar Kach, and afterwards Halalu Et Kel B'Kodsho, which is the fifth. Why the third and fifth Halalukas? Because that was the Sukkot Zimra according to Rashi. Last week we said there's a machloket between Rashi versus the Rif of Rambam as to other than Ashrei, what you're supposed to do. Rashi had said the third and fifth. So that's why if you don't have you have a bit more time, you always go to the third and fifth. Because that is Sukkot Zimra according to Rashi. It's complicated stuff. You don't have to, it's like a list to commit to memory. Yeah, the moral of the story is don't be late. I'd call or be so late you have to skip the whole thing, but I didn't say that bit. Ad kol halishmat halelka, but achar kach, and afterwards yishtabach. Afterwards you recite yishtabach, but achar kach, and afterwards yotzer, you say the bracha of yotzer, kriyat shema b'kotecha, kriyat shema with the brachot, v'yitpalel im hatzibur yidava with the congregation. If im ein shehut kol kach, and you don't have that much time, yidaleg gam mizmor halalu et Hashem b'shamayim. Skip the third halaluka, and then if you don't have any time, skip the fifth halaluka. But the most important thing is baruch she'amar ashrei yishtabach. That's what the Ramah there adds. If you don't have any time. The Ramah, we won't read inside just because I got 9 o'clock, but that's what he says. Despite the various minhagim, the Mishnah Berurah says that whatever you're skipping, you can't skip some of the Birkot Shachar. You're not supposed to skip Netilat Yadayim, Shayat, and Birkot Torah. Those are things you're supposed to recite and not afterwards. So if a person's really late to shul and didn't recite Netilat Yadayim, you still have to always do Netilat Yadayim, Shayat, and Birkot Torah. The reason is because you can't recite Birkot Torah afterwards. I don't want to rush this too much. The question is, do we want to continue this next time and then we can go on to book 10? We can end off there. I don't want to rush through this. Okay. Yes. You daven Sfarad. Okay. Make your life complicated for me. Yeah.
But with the brachot, it has al netilat yadayim, and above the bracha it says we do not say this. Is Ashkenaz different? That's exactly what it says. It says we do not say this bracha.
I guess the assumption is that they said it earlier. You have to show me the siddur. Yeah, the assumption is you said it earlier, so you have to show me the siddur. Okay, we get. I think we'll end here. We'll continue sort of with the final, order of priorities next time. I recommend everyone get book 10 for next week because the final, it's extra value because it's thicker and taller as well. The final chapter of book, so we'll finish the last couple of pages at the beginning of next time, and then we'll start book 10, which is available in the office. The last chapter of book 9 is about Araminim, so I think we'll skip that and maybe we'll come back to it before Sukkot. That's right, Hashem. So we'll stop there and we'll go through the lowdown for next time. We skipped volume 8, which was was it 8? Hilchot Nida. No, was it 8? Yes. So are we going to get? No, it wasn't 8. It was 7. We skipped volume 7, which was Hilchot Nida. Is there interest to go back to it? But the problem is now we're so deep into tefillah, we have to decide if we're going to do that as an alternative shit. Something to think about. Okay. Have a good evening.